Rotarians today, I'd ask that you unmute your screen and introduce yourself.
Trey, this is Don Selvage, and it's my pleasure to introduce once again Jeremy Mockabee, Captain Jeremy Mockabee, the new commanding officer of the Salvation Army. Kathy Abels and I have nominated Jeremy to be a member of our club, and I'd like to invite Jeremy to introduce himself. Jeremy?
Yeah, thank you again for the introduction. I think this is my third Rotary meeting with you guys as a guest, third or fourth, but I enjoy being here. And again, thank you for your time and look forward to seeing you all at some point in the near future, whatever that looks like, in person. But thank you for the invite and thank you for the welcome.
And do we have any other guests or Rotarians?
This is Dan. We have a guest with us, Rebecca's sister, Donna Renfro.
Hi. Trey, go ahead. Go ahead, Steve.
Hi, this is Steve Carey. I'm at the Lakeland South Club, but I am serving as your AG this year for all the Lakeland clubs, so I'm just looking forward to working with all of y'all.
Welcome, Steve. Anyone
Trey,
else?
this is Bill Lippy, and with me today is our marketing director and e-commerce director, Sherry Diaz. And also not shown, but will be joining us soon, is Charles Jansen Van Buren, and he's our CFO.
And anyone else?
Yep, Kim Brunson here. I'll introduce my daughter who's at her office participating, and my sister who's with me, I'm sorry, Laura Adams, who's at work participating, and my sister, Andra Howell, who's also has joined me.
Okay. Do we have anybody else?
This is Marcia again. I invited Benny Simmers to join us. I don't know if he's on the call or not. If he is, Benny, you want to pick up?
And Marcia, again, I'm having trouble hearing you for some reason.
Okay. Okay.
Is it the same guest? Can he introduce himself again?
That would be Denny Summers, I think.
Yes. Not sure if he's on today, so thank you.
And if he could introduce himself.
Marcia said she's not sure if he's on today.
Oh, okay. And anyone else? All right. Welcome to everyone.
All right, thank you, Trey. Welcome, everybody. We got a pretty good crowd for an online version of this. Obviously, everybody's here to hear from our great mayor. Next up is Happy Dollars. I'm going to kick this off. I want to say thank you to Jack and Holly Lohman for the great time that we had at their house this weekend. What a great luau and shindig that we had, and had a great time. As far as I know, nobody jumped in the pool. Everybody kept their clothes on, so it was very uniform, and we did the right things. I also want to do another one for all the volunteer spirit that I've had from all the people that have stepped up for the committees and the subcommittees and other services that have been going on. I have yet to have anybody say no. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, because it's hard enough to try to find folks to fill these positions, but you all have stepped up in a big way. I just want to say thank you so much. Those are the two Happy Dollars I've got. If anybody else has any, please speak up. Come on, somebody's got to be happy in this group. Okay.
Happy today. For my son and husband who just got back from a survival weekend. Lincoln turned 13 this summer, and so they went up into the Ocala National Forest, and it was a camp for people 18 years and older. And being just 13 with my husband, Lincoln got the highest score on the test at the end of the camp, which included some military guys that were in there. So he was pretty stoked about that, and we're just very proud of him and as he continues to grow and mature. So they had a great time. I'm happy about that.
That's great. Thanks, Gwen. Anybody else? Happy dollars? Okay, if we'll move on to the announcements. I've just got one, and then I'll open up, see if anybody else has any. It's dues time. You've heard this before. You're going to hear it again. Please, please, please step up and pay your dues. We've got bills and obligations that we have to meet, and so we really need to get that our dues in and get that taken care of. And really, we'll give you a choice. You can pay your dues, or you can face Vice Grips Townsend. It's kind of your call at this point, but I think I'd go with the dues route. Does anybody else have any announcements?
This is Jack. One quick one. I am looking for members for the fellowship committee. Right now I'm a committee of one, and you can't really fellowship by yourself. So if anybody'd like to help me plan some future fun events, please reach out to me. I'd love to have you on the committee.
Jack, if anybody could fellowship by themselves, it would be you. And I mean that in the kindest way possible.
And it's taken that way.
Any other announcements? Anybody? Okay. We're going to give our mayor, now your mayor is a politician. If you give him 45 minutes, he'll probably take it. Just fair warning. But here to do the introduction for our great mayor is going to be our own Jack Lohman.
Thank you, President Joel. It's my honor today to introduce our speaker, someone we all know and love. Bill Mutz was born in Indianapolis and graduated from Indiana University, majoring in finance and marketing. He moved to Lakeland in 1996, becoming the president and co-owner of the Lakeland Auto Mall. Bill sold the Auto Mall in 2012 and became a partner with Green Star Panels for several years. Subsequently, Bill performed as a business consultant with Claridge Associates before becoming our city's mayor in 2018. Mayor Mutz and his wife Pam, formerly of Denver, have been married for 43 years and are the parents of 12 children, 7 boys and 5 girls, ranging from ages 42 to 21 years old. Bill and Pam have 24 grandchildren as of the writing of this bio, but who knows, it could be up to 30 or 40 at this point. In civic roles, Bill has served on 21 not-for-profit or business boards and helped found Grace City Church. Bill has a passion for seeing successful life change in marriages and parenting. His foundational driving goal is to strive to help everyone, honor everyone. He believes when we do so, we will create thriving environments where desiring people can attain hopes and dreams while realizing their full potential. Please give a Lakeland Rotary welcome to our own Bill Mutz.
You're on mute.
All right. So can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Whoops.
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay, great. It's an honor for me to be able to speak to this club for lots of reasons. And when I look at the screen and I see so many of the faces on this in this club, those are part of them. But when I get to speak to our club, I'm home from my perspective. The Rotary Club of Lakeland became my first portal of vision for a community that I grew to love after we moved here in 1996. Carter Pullen grabbed me and said, "You're coming with me to this meeting," and didn't even tell me what I was doing. He came by the dealership. I got in this car, and that's how I got kicked into Rotary from the very, very, very start. The mayors, Fletcher and Wiggs, were early influences in my admiration for our local governance. And without ever having any aspiration for being involved in local governance. Willie Wilson and so many of you allowed me to grow virtual roots into our city's very unique history. And it doesn't hurt anything that George Jenkins was a member of this club. Also, I regret the fact that I never had the opportunity to meet him. But I've had the privilege now of serving as mayor for about 2.5 years. And I'm asked frequently about, boy, are you sorry that you're a mayor now, or something to that effect? And is it a challenging time? Of course it is. But I'm so grateful for the opportunities that these challenges present to our city. I really am thrilled to be able to know that I can have some input into that process. So in our brief time today, I want to give you a few thumbnail overviews from my perspective as to what is occurring in our city and kind of the quilt of opportunities I see us sewing together, a little bit of the future of where we're headed. And then we'll have some time, if I manage this well, for questions at the end. I want to begin with the commission. My fellow commissioners are an extraordinary group of public servants with which to work. I'm telling you, I don't have to be prompted to say that. I believe that in my heart of hearts. They care about people. They're strategic and frugal. They're nimble. They appropriately question. We reach decisions with very respectful harmony. And I'm incredibly grateful for each one of them. This is not always the case as we observe commissions, and we're well equipped to handle adversity and opportunities as this commission works together, and we embrace them both. I don't think any of us feel burdened by it. We think about it as a privilege to be able to navigate through it. But it doesn't stop there. So I start with, a great commission to be able to work with on the governance side. Then I want to flip to what our staff is like. Our city staff's extraordinary. Tony Delgado, as our city manager, has led and trained well and grown capable and robust department heads, with the exception of Lakeland Electric. And that was just a joke, Joel. That was just, Joel's go ahead, sir. What were you going to say?
You're killing me, Mayor.
Joel's a perfect example, though, of the kind of department heads that we have in place, who, in a very approachable, casual style, have great complexities and understand a lot of complexities and very thorough understanding of the needs and the pressing issues. And that's the way we are throughout the city. It is really wonderful. And we have a great deputy city manager and a great assistant city manager. Tony will be missed. You have to respect his choice of timing, though. He picked a pretty good time to decide to be able to go, but we will remain in good hands as we go forward. We are using a national search team to look for an extraordinary candidate. And you might ask, why are we doing that? Because we're looking for something, because face it, we are a promote from within culture normally in the process, and we might end up doing that. But we would only not do that if we found some extraordinary candidate with some great capabilities and who we believe would fit into the culture well. And so I think it behooves us to make certain that we're doing a national search for that, but we are capably able to grow from within. And I just want you to know that our entire commission team believes that. Now let me address the citizens of Lakeland. That's you, to the most part. And we are an extraordinary community. We are not like every community. People always think they're unique. Lakeland really is a unique place. We work in cooperation, in trust. Overall, we're a very optimistic community. We recognize growth keeps us vital, and status quo is how cities die. And so we work towards growth. We don't talk about protecting where we are and not getting any bigger. And we work on protecting what matters most, which is people. And we also know how to tolerate what's temporarily annoying. And I don't think that goes as something you take for granted. That's something I'm very, very incredibly grateful for. So I love our people and the hearts that desire to do what needs to be done. Do we all agree on everything across our community? Of course not. We would not want that. Diversity is what makes us thrive. A difference of opinion helps us get to stronger resolutions. So that's a great place for us to live as a community. But all in all, we care about people. And this is a community that moves forward well because of that. So our community strength is what we work to resolve and figure out what needs to be done. We respect the range of opinions in which tasks must be accomplished. And it's certainly true of the current challenges that we have to be attuned to seeking opportunities to enhance equality and the opportunities for all our citizens. And I want us to be sensitive and not defensive to that. Our racial forums have been very beneficial. I regard them seriously, and we provide, and we will come back and provide a specific game plan to address steps we can take to minimize the gaps and to kind of equalize the playing fields of opportunity that we have, because they exist in our community. And so if we can identify gaps, we want to do that. And when we can know how we can work to move into those, and we do that together and cooperatively and using mentors and people across the community who have talents and skills, that creates great opportunity. So some of the steps that required are going to be institutional. Very few of them really require any funding, they really require restructuring, and mostly they need heart-to-heart interactions that can further enhance our oneness as a city. And we're good at that. We can be better, but we're good at that. And we will introduce a non-city concept. I'm not going to try and make it a city concept, but it'll certainly have city endorsement and support, called Courageous Community Conversations. And that is going to allow us to be able to put 10 to 14 people together in groups of different ethnicities for 4 months, 1 meeting a month. How we do this, some of it might start virtually and then it might end up into dinners in homes, but it's going to be some opportunity to be able to have people get to know that group of people better, know a little bit about what brought them here, what's part of their heritage and past, and what their priorities are. And for each of those 4 times together, we'll give a little direction in terms of what topics to cover. And on the last time together, they will give a recap of what they've learned from each other, which we'll post together, probably show that, and this probably is going to be a September, October, November, December start, a December ending with a video recap that we'll show in January, and then a new round in February, March, April, and May, so that we can have people who are involved in that get involved in creating another group where they get to do that. If we do this well and the numbers push right, we could have somewhere between 10 to 15,000 people involved in having been part of those courageous community conversations. And they'll strengthen who we are in understanding as a city. That and many other things that are more specific to how we can help bridge opportunities. COVID is a different topic. COVID brings with it an additional set of challenges that we have to face as a community in order to pursue the maximum protection of others. When we, and this is a cautioning here, and listen, I listen well, and I listen intently, and I answer virtually every email I get on this topic. But when we make a healthcare pandemic an emotional or political issue, we are not our best selves. It is anything but those 2 things. This is a healthcare dilemma, and it requires the most practical, protective solutions which have attained the most measurable results, which we can see in other states and marketplaces. We don't have to wonder if these numbers are valid. We can just see the policies that were in place and see the success that has been attained. There are 3 key steps to this: social distancing, washing hands, and wearing masks. Masks protect other people. But when we focus on my inconvenience, my rights, my most recent conspiracy data that this is the real reason, funding of doctors and hospitals that are going to create all this wealth for the vaccine people, then we cease to be oriented in caring about other people. And instead, we earn the right to object, resulting in the fact that as a nation, and this is how American we are, we're 4.9% of the population of the world, with 29.8% of the positive COVID cases in the world. And we've earned our right to keep them. We have to be smarter than that. As a Central Florida county, whereas mask mandated counties are now at the 11% of positive test results or lower, Sarasota County being 7% this past week. Polk County is 15.8%, and that was being 17.1% just 2 days ago. The percentage of positive tests daily is the singularly most critical granular data you can watch. It is irrespective of the number of tests taken, and you have to remember that about 40% of COVID carriers are asymptomatic people. They don't even know in many cases they have it. Hence the need for masks to keep them from exposing the more vulnerable, either directly or through another person who carries it to them. And we're about to start school. So think about this. Instead of us being in a position that we were at maybe 10% or 8%, we are now at 15%. It will be mid-September before we get to 10% because it just takes that kind of time to grind back down. We've watched it in our surrounding counties and the success that they've been able to attain. So we're going to go back to school hot. We're now one of the 12th most hotspot city in the metropolitan area. That's Lakeland and Winter Haven in the nation. We're on the red list in terms of the CDC in DC's watch list. And we still don't have a county mandate for masks. It's inconceivable. It's inconceivable. And so I'm extremely disappointed with that. I'm disappointed that there's not more fervor to our commissioners at the county about it. And I think we need to recognize, if we think we are going to escape some difficulties going into fall by just making sure we protected our rights, and I'll shop outside the city of Lakeland if I don't want to wear a mask, and if I'm more comfortable because people are protecting me, I shop inside the city of Lakeland or Winter Haven because they are protecting masks. We have to be smarter than this. So I think we have to make plans. We talked about the Zoom meeting. Would it be nice, I saw in one of the chats, would it be nice to get together as a club? Yes. You want to get together as a club? We need to be masking. You want to get together as a club? We need to watch the numbers on that positive number of tests daily take place. Because when we're above 10%, we're going to be a exponential growth rate up. When we're between 10 to 5%, we're going to plateau. And when we're below 5% of positive rates per test taken, we will watch the trend go down. And so our goal is 5% or less. Our hospitals are taxed now. Winter Haven has the first mobile hospital assist that they're going to have. We've diverted from both Lakeland Regional Health and Winter Haven Hospital patients. We have OR docs that are having to and nurse teams that are having to supplant our ICU teams. So it isn't a matter of even room capacity. We're out of people who have the medical capacity, and we're working long shifts. They're exhausted, and our healthcare workers are redlined. We cannot act like this is just a choice we make and I don't feel like it and win that way. If we want to pursue that, we'll just watch these numbers continue, and we'll watch the spread continue to take place. This is a time to be as drastic as necessary. And I want us to think about the fact the numbers play the music in a pandemic, not our opinions. So let's watch numbers. Let's work with real data in our marketplace where we live, and let's see what we're able to accomplish. I will now turn into a more positive Bill Mutz, okay? I'm delighted as I look at the university leadership and the planning that's being done as we anticipate beginning classes in the fall. There's great programs in place and thoughtfulness. We have a very, very talented set of campus teams. And Melody, we appreciate your involvement as our club as well in that regard. We've had some good news things, there's a silver lining in everything. So during this timing, we have had the opportunity to have some infrastructure opportunities and improvements take place. We replaced some of our downtown street old sewer maintenance covers that were built in the 20s, not the 2020s, the 1920s, where we had old manholes that had little valves in them that used to flush out the sewage pipes when they would get stuck downtown. I got to even go watch the guys do one of these one morning, and because there was little traffic downtown, they can go in and put new covers and caps on those and take away some of that old plumbing that was in place. That's happened, and they're all finished. We were able to repave the walkway while the Lake Hollingford Path was closed during the park period. The Dixieland Road Diet has gone in about 3 months ahead of schedule. By the way, with respect to the Dixieland Road Diet, we'll have that measured as an October 1st start. They still have some things to do. They're going to pave around those areas. Remember, too, this is an FDOT fully funded project, not a City of Lakeland project. It is their #1 road diet that they wanted to advance in the state of Florida this year. It is part of traffic safety as well, in reduction of accidents, as well as pedestrian safety on the sidewalks. And we'll have a year to take a look at that. We're going to start the measurement of that year, October 1st, as we were planning to do so, because we still have some additional things to put into place before it's really fully functional. And plus, we want to hopefully get to a period of time of more normalcy as we're measuring the real traffic. Schools are back. Maybe businesses are opening even more robustly by October if we've done some of the things we need to do now well by then. And so then we'll measure and see how that works. That is a removable curb system. You literally take a bulldozer blade and pop those things out. We could always go backwards. We have funds to be able to do that. I really highly suspect that we won't, and that we'll find that it is a good success as we go forward. And if you think about it now, you're in a single file as you go through that area, but you're not slowed down dramatically time-wise as you do so. So it's that we don't offset each other like this going down. We're all in one lane together. We'll see. We'll have a chance to measure that. And we also, as a shift, got to do the summit building. and get it started, the hole in the ground, and have Massachusetts kind of carved off a little bit so that we could get the crane and all that in there. And that'll be the case for several more months, of course, as we go along. And Summit Building is going to be going up at a period of time when we have reduced traffic downtown, and that's good. Let's move to construction for a second. But beyond Summit, which will be 8 floors of, I think it's 238,000 square feet. I forget the number exactly. We'll have 500 employees that are downtown every day when we are fully back up. Meriton, if you have not gone north of the police station to look at that project coming out of the ground, is coming along on schedule wonderfully well. 305 apartment units, 305 people living there. We just had FERC purchase the, or start the process of purchasing the land that's on Massachusetts that'll be west of that to help start to open up some shops and some offices and multi-use space that will come along on Massachusetts. That's going to be very exciting to see how that whole area grows. And then we have the Staybridge Suites that opened up next to the RP Funding Center. RP Funding Center, you may have read even the article in the paper today, has a lot of pressure because this is a people gathering place. So we really aren't anticipating opening it back up until January 1st at the earliest that we will consider doing that. It is being used privately for some things like funerals or an event where you might even think on a not-for-profit event. If you needed a big room of social distancing and you really wanted somebody in the room, there'd be more favorable rates for that kind of thing for not-for-profit organizations to be able to think about a bigger space where we could have people together but have them be farther apart. But for the main, we're going to have to idle through while we determine what we can do and when we can restart. This is a time of uncertainty. So you'd like to be more prescriptive in it's going to happen like and look like this, but we don't know that. And so we have to take it a step at a time. Beyond Staybridge Suites, which is now in place next to RP Funding Center, and will help us actually draw more credible shows to RP because the Staybridge Suites has some very nice rooms in which to stay for those people who might be performing. Amazon opens on July 23rd. You're going to see your first prime jet, that's 2 days from now, start to land out at the airport. I had an opportunity to go through that facility on Friday. Absolutely incredible. This building was built and the pads poured out front and the electrical service provided by Lakeland Electric for each of the jets so that they don't run their engines when they're sitting there waiting to unload and reload, and they're attached to electrical tethers instead. This is going to be an absolute fabulous place. So just some little nuances of the Amazon building. I'm looking at the clock, I'm good. Are the fact that there's 3 floors in this building. It's a 250,000 square foot a floor. And so if you look at this, and they want to add a larger than 500,000 warehouse space right next to it. So 3 of the walls are concrete, 1 of them's metal, so it can be ripped open soon and we can add on and continue the growth out of that center. They have 235 employees working right now for the past 2 weeks that are doing nothing but using pallets. Very rarely that you see a pallet jack, but there are times that they are there. Setting up robots, putting boxes on things. These boxes are empty, but to just get sure that everything is working and the employees know what to do when the jets start to arrive, because boxes don't stay in this building more than 24 hours. They come off the jets, they get sorted into 60 different chutes that take them down to wherever there's a subsort that takes it to the truck that it goes on. And most of this is done robotically, and it's going to have 1,000 employees on it, 1,500 employees in it by the time that we get to the expansion. And they use a network for their Zoom calls like these that is actually within the CIA's security realm. So they don't use for their own employees because there's so much security associated with the scope of a company like Amazon. And so you're watching all these people work, these robot arms work. There's in the middle floor, there's 550 little blue robots that work on the floor all the time and go to different spots. In fact, well, I can show you. These, I was given these, I did not take these. These are QR codes that are put in series on the floor. And when the robot eye gets above this, it reads that and it knows that it should turn and go that way, or it continues to go straight. And they're all throughout the floor. And there's lanes of these. And you watch all these little robots working and moving one box per robot until it gets to a chute where it dumps it in and it goes down to that truck area. It's incredible. The logistics, the IT involved, the accuracy in construction, where your Hunt Construction did this building, where you have 1/2 inch of clearance between 30 of these chutes on both sides. It's just an amazing thing to see. That starts next week. And we'll have about 7 jets a day that come in that are Amazon Prime jets. These jets are no seats at all. They're solid fuselage of 4 carriers for boxes that then nest underneath each other. I can't do it because my hands don't work right, but if you get that, this is in quarters. That's how they come out, that's how they go in, that's how they're unloaded, and that's how they get to the trucks. All right, that's Amazon. And they have loved working with the city. They talk about this is their 8th center like this, and it is absolutely the one they have had the best cooperation with, working anywhere. And that and we did it in 353 days to build that building. So it's an incredible testimony to lots of people who just found out how to make that happen. And Gene's leadership out at the airport is incredible, and team that he has out there. So that's Amazon. What does the next fiscal year look like for us as we think about strategy and budgets? We really want to write it out to some degree. So this isn't going to be, when we look at the fiscal year 21, this isn't a year that we're going to be aggressive. This is a year that we have instead decided to put money that we have appropriated earlier and de-appropriated it, about $10 million worth, round numbers, and put it in abeyance while we see what our needs are, while we see what the economy does, while we see what happens to property values, so we don't have to make a millage change, so that we decide how can we relate to the Lakeland electric dividend with differences in uses. And we depend on all of that. That's why our millage rate is so low. And so as we think about additional things we want to do and additional things we want to accomplish as a city, we need to do that in a more vibrant time economically. And I think right now our job is to stay the course, remain healthy, obviously take care of the quality of life and infrastructure that we should, fund the people who protect us in fire and police like we should, keep policies with fire and police particularly like they should be. And we're an accredited police department. So when a lot of the horrific things that are going on around the country have occurred, we have policies that have been in place to prevent those things for decades. Can we sharpen our game? Always. Are we going to work to be more customer service oriented? Absolutely. That's part of our job. That's how we always get better as a city. But we aren't defunding police, and we aren't going to spend any time not creating accountability. It is always a balance between listening well and fixing what we have an obligation to change, and then making sure that people respect authority and are subject to authority. That's why we have laws. That's why we have streets. We don't want those streets blocked. So when we have permits for parades or protests, we want those permits followed where their protests are there. And it's fine to have protests. Protests are a way we awaken society and raise issues. That's not the issue. The issue is what happens when we have some malcontents that do different things than the protest was designed for, and to try and create a scenario that we want to avoid. We're not going to be tolerant of those things. And but we will be very, very, very embracing of what the protests are about. So that's just a balance that we want to keep. But we're not going to be defunding in that regard. We won't even have discussions on that. We're going to be able to look back and see the critical errors that cities have made, where they have not supported law enforcement. We may need to change some of the things we do with law enforcement. Ultimately, we may do some body cams in the future. That may be down the road for us as we talk about those kinds of things. But to not support them, to not make sure that they're respected, to not make sure that we're taking cases and applying them properly in courts, that is not going to be an area where we relax. We are going to make sure we create a balanced venue for that as we go forward. But when you look at the fiscal year, all in all, it's going to kind of stay and remain where it is. And so those de-appropriations have occurred in almost everything except the cultural center, because we want to continue that going forward, and affordable housing. We want to do that. If we embraced a company, and I'll get to affordable housing in a minute, but if we embraced a private partner that wanted to do a business downtown or create some kind of a new facility or investment maybe in some other areas of the city, certainly we can activate those funds for the right reasons. But we'll do that making sure that those things are kind of can carry their own weight as we go forward. We have to look going forward, and I know the commission struggles with both what do we do with RP Funding Center and what do we do with the golf course as cost centers. So we're really going to need to have the city weigh into that, because you can look at raw costs of the RP Funding Center this year, which would be very abnormal. We were on a 3 million loss rate for the year. It's going to be about 5.5 million loss. Obviously, no activities within it. You can't make any money from it. But that is a bit that. The RP Funding Center is a place that potentially in the past has created probably somewhere between $25 to $30 million of local expenses with restaurants and hotels and the activities and people that come to the town that go in there. So you can't measure it only by the cost of the center. You have to look at what we lose if we don't have those same functions happening for our city. The golf course is the same thing. It's a park, none of our parks make money, so it's a park we provide. It just loses more money than most parks. It costs more money to run. But at present, I think this is not the time to look at those things and make those decisions. It's just a time for us to be aware that we need to think about what are we going to do going forward on a longer term basis and be thoughtful about it. So good input from citizens is important to your commissioners in this. It's important as you talk with other people on staff, the city staff about it, because it's helpful for us to think about what you want to do. On affordable housing, we must grow workforce housing. So we're going to continue to grow jobs here. We're going to continue to grow as a city, but we have had a big shift of people, not necessarily particularly younger, wanting to own homes. They want to have the flexibility of living in apartments. And so apartments, which used to be more affordable, have sucked up the non-homeowners that are younger that have gone into the workplace. And now all of a sudden we don't have affordable housing in a whole nother round once again. So we're working, Teresa Mayo in our community development and economic development department is doing a great job of honchoing this, trying to identify parcels that are smaller that the city owns where we can build affordable housing in case it might be 2 units or 1 unit, but in some cases it might be 12 or 20 depending on the lot size, as well as working with P3 providers to bring in companies who are missional about wanting to have affordable housing, and they're out there, and so they know that this is kind of important to Lakeland. So we want to have a fund that helps bridge what their shortfalls would be if they're helping us to provide for that end. If we don't, we'll be in a crisis on not having places for people to live, and it's our responsibility to bridge the entire spectrum of our economic wage scales with the ability for people to have a home to live in. Single families, moms primarily that raise children, some of which have come from homeless environments and surviving, that we have enough capacity beyond the not-for-profits to put into some of these things. We have to have a community consciousness to want to grow that, and we're way off. When we visited Greenville, South Carolina as a county a year ago, because if you liken us as a city to a city that has really remained vital and become a great place that people love to live, I think we're a lot like Greenville. And if you haven't been to Greenville in 20 years, you're going to be shocked if you go back and see it. And it's just today, the downtown, I remember Greenville in mid-90s that was dead downtown, and it's kind of scary. Whereas today it is extremely vital. What they didn't do well was affordable housing. So when you want to learn from people who made a mistake and they're in trouble now on affordable housing because they didn't work to integrate it, and now all of a sudden they're having to find a pocket for affordable housing. We don't want to do that. We want to make it a part of our city, spread around, and so therefore really think about all the opportunities that you might be able to touch to help grow that. What about broadband? We are working on the broadband provisional quotes right now that would augment spectrum so that we have, because we have pockets and holes of additional broadband needs that we have, and we'll take a look at that. But ultimately, we can have zero digital divide because it creates a huge difference in the way people can learn. Every student that lives in our city has to have equal access to internet. And we are going to make that possible across whatever poverty scales may exist in order to do that, because it's where all of these young people are going to be living going forward. And as a city with computerized integrations on autonomous vehicles and all the other kinds of things that we have coming, we've got to have that broadband capacity exist. We're not going to pay for it as a city. We'll use vendors to be able to grow that and make money from for themselves without us assuming a huge risk and a huge hundreds of millions of dollars of exposure in a decade that we could otherwise have to absorb. And we'll still get the service without the liability. That's when we win. What about water? We do a great job on water. We're working on water through 2035. Our water team is phenomenal. Water is something we take for granted every day until it goes bad. And if you become a Flint, Michigan, you can't sell your house fast enough. So water is a limited commodity. It's mutually exclusive. It has to be used well. Our Polk Regional Water Cooperative is working very well together between all the cities within that region, and I think it's a good model of how we can cooperate with one another, and I'm very encouraged at what I see there. The last thing I'm going to talk about, and then we'll open for questions, is the research district. So we have the Florida Poly area that is probably going to be acquired by a group. And if that group is able to acquire it, it's going to help us define some research district area around the Poly that we can then work to help coordinate with SunTrack and the ability to try and create a research corridor out there in addition to everything else that's developed. And so that's very, very important to us. I want you to watch that as we go along. We're very supportive of a research district because we think we can absolutely transform that area into something that's hard for us to even think about today. But if we do that well, it can become an autonomous vehicle research center, as well as many other things that will transform Auburndale and Winter Haven and Lakeland as well by what it will attract. So as I think about how we're postured for the decade ahead, it's certainly something that we are focused on in terms of making sure our decision making is designed to try and address and meet those needs. You know, you have to, the difference between owning your own business, I can say this as a private guy, and making a decision is you use an elevator. The difference in government is you use the stairway. So, you know, you make a decision, you go to third floor, you press the 3 button. In government, you make a decision, a tread up the stairway at a time. And there's a reason for that, because we have to be careful. This is other people's money, yours, and it has to be used wisely, and it can only be used once. And it needs to figure out how it can be self-sustaining. And so, and you have to acquire access. Our Wabash corridor is going to be wonderful someday. You're going to run into the back of Lakeland Village Shops, Town Center, and running up Wabash that comes right out of the back of that and going straight up to Memorial, and have a easy way to be able to do that. And that corridor we're in the process of putting together, because we have to take that whole west side of the airport growth and the 5,000 houses that'll be built south of the airport and be able to manage that traffic. So I'd love to spend more time on every one of those areas, but that's really it for a quick overview, and I'll take questions on anything that you'd like to ask.
Thank you, Mayor. Great presentation as usual. I think Dan Borman was asking about the labs that were testing and getting 100% positives coming out of it. And he just looking for what your opinion on that is. That something that's being addressed?
Yeah, so Dan, that has been addressed, and the reality is it was materially a very low number of tests. We're always going to be able to find something when we have this much flow that it can be one-off. So what we want to recognize is, by the way, we used none of those labs here. So when we look at our 17%, our 70%, it's real 17%. we are in a, if you have a meeting with healthcare, the concern, the serious faces are grave. I mean, there's very little margin for them right now. We don't, so it's inconceivable to them that we don't work these numbers down. Can we find this article, this lab error, that lab error? Of course we can. Focus on Polk County. Focus on your two healthcare systems that you can really trust, which are Winter Haven and Lakeland Regional. And just look at what we're doing here and the quality of the people that are in place, trying to be as nimble and protective as possible, and who we can protect where we live by being careful.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to accent that just a little bit too, because whenever we have a hurricane come through our area, we've got to bring in hundreds of workers to help us get the power lines put back up. You think about their trepidation in wanting to come here knowing that we're one of the hottest spots in the nation right now. So we're going to have a hard time attracting workers to come down here and assist us in this move. So to your point, wearing the mask, using good hygiene, these kinds of things, I think is critically important for a whole lot more reasons than people even know or even aware of. So thank you for accenting that point. Linda Gizard was asking about hurricane plans, shelters rather, hurricane shelters in regards to COVID. Is there a plan in place throughout the county to help manage that that you're aware of?
Yeah, we do. We have an EOC separate conversation on what do we do with the COVID people in the shelters and how is that taking place. So that is something that we have to consider. You know, you have to consider in your school when the COVID hits in the classroom, what happens to that teacher? What happens to the students in that teacher? Who's the substitute teacher? You know, is there an online provision for them? You know, everything we're planning right now in any arena has to have a COVID piece on what do we do when, not if. And that's why when the numbers are down, when the positivity numbers are down, we can win. While they're doing this, it's just going to get worse faster.
Good point. Joel brought up a good point. That's the other Joel, by the way. He wanted to know if there's anybody at Amazon we could attract into this club. So if you know of somebody or anybody else knows of somebody, let's reach out to them.
That's a great idea, and I didn't even think about that, Joel. And let's let them get landed for a month or so, but then let's go get them. Because listen, what a phenomenal place, and would I love to see us be able to do a tour of that? Gosh, that would be great. So if you get them in the club, you know, maybe we can get a tour out there. It would be very fun.
There was a lot of requests for that too, actually. So last question, this is from Carol Wallace. You know, she's an attorney, so take it for what it is here. So she says, how can we get involved in a courageous community conversation group when those get organized?
You can start to email me now that you're interested, and I'll get it. I'm funneling it to Kelvin McCree, who's really heading up this effort, and he's doing a great job of. We've got a new logo. I don't have it where I can grab it really fast, but he's going to be the funnel for it, and then we'll put together, you know, and there's going to be a survey question and a link that you take, and that will help them sort who you meet with. And we wanted to get started in August. We're too hot to be able to get started in August in terms of COVID. So we're thinking if we just do a September start, we can still keep the momentum in this.
Fantastic. Thank you. There actually was one more question. So this is from Michelle Efford. In hindsight, do you feel there are any decisions that could have been made differently to mitigate our current COVID-19 situation here?
No question. Well, locally, obviously, and it's not much hindsight, we need it at the county level. So that's an immediate need. But we need it at the state level. The fact that Governor DeSantis has not done a mask mandate is a political decision. That's the easiest way for me to say it, not a prudence decision. You don't look at the state of Florida and over 20 million people being one of the hottest spots in the nation and decide masks are maybe part of it. You guys decide how you want to do that locally. Our numbers are a blip. That's bad conclusion, bad conversation. This isn't a blip. We're in it getting worse until we fix it. And so you have to be as drastic as necessary. The numbers have to play the music, and he's not doing that. So I think we opened probably too fast. As Floridians and Americans, we opened too casually. We were all pent up. We went and played hard together. We laugh at it. So we got worn out in the period of time we expected it to be bad, and then went out and reopened. Now it is bad, and we can't get anybody's attention. We're now where we talked about we thought we would be when it started. and it didn't happen. And so people don't take it seriously. There's COVID parties in Osceola County. I mean, that's craziness where you go to get COVID from positive people. And a 21-year-old died saying, I never took it seriously. I just wish I had taken it seriously. And he was 21, went to the party. Imagine what happens when a multi-generational grandparent who's taking care of a kid in school gets it because there's not the right protection and comes home and gives it to their grandparent who has a vulnerability. So we just got to be serious about this. For a period of time, this is not going to end our world. The best days are here to come. We're going to continue to grow our economy and our community, but this is not something to mess with. It is something to be as drastic as necessary and practical.
Good. Thank you, sir. There was a request for the email. I would suggest this from Dan Borneman. If you go to the website, lakelandgov.net, look under the government section, you can go pick out whichever mayor, city commissioner that you would like to send something to. Their email addresses are there for everybody to see. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much. I can tell you straight from the heart, it's a pleasure working with you every single day. I enjoy it. If I'm going down the wrong path, you'll tell me. If I'm going down the right path, you'll tell me, and I appreciate that, because how else would you know? But it's been a real great pleasure working with you. I've got this almost Gucci bookbinder notebook. It's almost Gucci. It's close.
It looks Gucci to me. And if you scratch it, it's Gucci too.
I got this Rotary pen that is Rotary Opens Opportunities, and I will bring this to your office when I get a chance, sir. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. At this point, I'd like to ask Trey to thank our visiting Rotarians and guests.
I'd like to thank our guests and visiting Rotarians for joining us today. And I apologize if I missed someone, but have Captain Jeremy Mockabee, Hans Steinbrenner, Doug Van Cleef, Laura Adams, Andra Howell, and Deborah Boynton, and then visiting Rotarian Steve Carey. Thank you all for joining us today, and we hope that you come back.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. AG Steve, it's good to see you out there, sir. Thank you for joining us as well. In the weekly quote, this is for you, Mr. Mayor. Success isn't about what you accomplish or just what you accomplish in life. It is about what you also inspire others to do. You do that a lot on a lot of different levels, sir, and so just keep that up, please. Thank you for being here and for speaking to us today. Our next meeting is Daniel Haight from Lakeland Regional Health, speaking of a good succession conversation. And so I look forward to seeing everyone then and there. At this point, we are adjourned. Thank you all. See you next week.